Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. Today we're checking out why are British place names so hard to pronounce.
British place names can be tricky to pronounce.
Take this place. Looks simple. But what if we told you it was pronounced Grimis?
I wouldn't believe you.
We'd be lying, it's Grimsby.
But other places can be genuinely fiddly for foreigners.
And tourists who get it wrong risk being imprisoned or killed.
In today's programme, we're going to ask why British place names are so hard to pronounce.
Is there an and coming?
No, I'm done.
Welcome to Map Men.
We're the men.
And here's the map.
Map men, map men, map, 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 map men.
There are difficult to pronounce place names all over the world.
California has Zizix, Slovenia has Ptuj, Greenland has...
Kekertarsuit.
Even Welsh natives struggle with this one.
And tonight we can expect to see heavy showers spreading from the west into Wales.
But deliberately hard to pronounce names invented for promotional purposes like Llanfair, Pwllgwyn, Gwrgogera, Chwyndrobr, Llantysilio, Gogogoch aside,
Show off.
British place names cause more trouble than most.
Llanfair, Woolgawain, Gilgogari, Churndro, Will, and Siligogogoch.
Because they often look straightforward, but contain nonsensical phonetic traps that are impossible to predict.
Try this one.
Go on, say it out loud, in your room or on your train.
From, eh? From.
Wrong, it's not Frome.
Frome, it should be blitheringly obvious, is pronounced Froome.
But if you did say Frome, don't worry, you're in good company. Frome is officially the most mispronounced place name in Britain. And that's according to a proper survey.
Excuse me, could you mispronounce Froome for me?
Portsmouth.
That'll do. There's nothing more fun than laughing at tourists who don't know how to say something properly simply because they're from a different country and could never reasonably be expected to have predicted a local pronunciation that contradicts the basic rules of language.
So, we've created the perfect travel agent's itinerary for maximising tourist humiliation across the country.
Starting in Biaulio,
Bewley,
head over to Rampisham,
Ransom,
then down to Mousehole.
Mousehole,
Next, travel north up to Towcester,
Toaster,
then a quick jaunt to Gotham,
Gotham,
followed by a stop in Quernmore,
Quormer,
before finishing up in Alnwick.
Alnwick, which is near Newcastle.
Or, as the people from the city itself say, Newcastle.
When will they learn?
Starting in Biaulio,
Bewley,
Bewley. Okay, I could sort of see that.
head over to Rampisham,
Ransom,
That's not Rampisham, that's Ransom.
then down to Mousehole.
Mousehole,
That works. Mousel. That's like saying mouse hole, just with a different emphasis on the different syllable.
Next, travel north up to Towcester,
Toaster,
Towcester, Toaster. I could, yeah, okay.
then a quick jaunt to Gotham,
Gotham,
followed by a stop
That works. Gotham.
in Quernmore,
Quormer,
before
Quama?
Quormer,
Quama? Quorn,
Quormer,
before finishing up in Alnwick.
Alnwick,
Alnwick, but it's pronounced Annick. I could see how these names that are often mispronounced are kind of tongue twisters. So I could see how over a long period of time that the locals form these other names for it just as almost like a nickname, or just because in normal conversation it's easier to say, it's quicker to say the nickname, and then over time the nickname becomes the pronunciation. I could definitely see that happening. There have been people living in these towns, I'm sure, for centuries, probably thousands of years. So I'm sure that it just evolves over time, right? And all the different languages that have come to England and all the different people, the invasions.
As you can hear, no letter of the English alphabet is safe from being pronounced any of dozens of different ways.
Including not at all.
Thankfully, there are some general rules you can stick to, and because we're nice, we'll help the un-British amongst you through a couple of basics.
Cester is pronounced stir.
Leicester, Worcester, Gloucester.
W at the start of the final syllable is silent.
Norwich, Berwick, Southwark.
ER is pronounced R.
Berkshire, Clerkenwell, Hertfordshire.
But before you get too reassured, for every rule in the English language there are always exceptions, such as the cester in,
Cirencester,
the W in,
Sandwich.
and the sound in,
Oh, this is disgusting. Oh, sorry, Berkhamsted.
which is in Hertfordshire.
The only way to be absolutely sure of pronouncing British place names correctly is to live here long enough to learn every single one of them, one at a time. Sorry.
So who were the complete anchors that invented these rules?
It's time for an English lesson.
Anchors. I got it. Because the W's silent at the beginning of a... Okay, yeah. So, funny. Very funny. Very funny.
To make an English language, you start with the base of Germanic Anglo-Saxon. Mix in a healthy dash of Old Norse, a huge dollop of Norman French, and just a barely detectable hint of Celtic. Trust me, it'll make all the difference. Stir it up for hundreds of years until the vowels really start to shift, and then English. English.
Excitingly, by looking at a map of Britain today, we can clearly see which invaders influenced our language where by plotting the origins of British place names. This marvellous, messy, multicoloured map shows which languages different British place names belong to and is a living history of our early settlers and subsequent invaders.
The oldest place names here are of Celtic origin. This is where you'll find all the place names with words like Tre, Loch, Bryn and Aber,
Such as Aberystwyth, meaning the mouth, Aber, of the River Istwyth.
which coincidentally is exactly where we find Aberystwyth today.
Celtic languages were once spoken all across the British Isles, but are now reduced to a small minority of mountain dwellers. And that's because low-lying Middle England Brits turned out to be more worse at resisting invading armies.
First up were the Romans, who brought in Britain's Latin influences.
Like the rumba.
No, like boring Latin.
Oh,
Anywhere that ends in caster, cester, chester or xeter was a Roman fort, from the Latin word castra, meaning Roman fort.
But the Romans didn't stay long, so although their naming system was long-lasting, the actual names they used weren't, which is perhaps unsurprising when we learn they used names like Castra Exploratorum and Belgic Oppidum.
which was sensibly renamed Braintree.
Next, in light pink, we have the biggest group, Germanic Anglo-Saxon.
Any place containing the words Ham, Hurst, Lee, Bury, Ford, Port, Mere, Stead, Tunstall, Wick, Witch or Mere are of good old Anglo-Saxon origin and massively dominate southern England.
I mean, those do seem Germanish, single-syllable, efficient words for things.
Like Buckingham.
Or a low-lying area of land belonging to an Anglo-Saxon called Bucca.
Perhaps the most upheavaling thing to
Really?
happen to Britain's place names was the Vikings, who swept in from Scandinavia in the 9th century, committing brutal crimes including rape, pillage and the renaming of small to medium-sized settlements.
You can tell a place was named by the Vikings if it ends in Thwaite, Thorpe, Kirk or B.
Thwaite, Thorpe, Kirk, or B. I've not heard of Kirk. I've not heard of something ending with Kirk, I don't think. Wait, Dunkirk. Yeah, I have. Okay.
Such as our old friend Grimsby, named after an important Viking called Grim, famed for his infectious positive energy.
Is that true? Was there really a Viking named Grim who had a great attitude? Hard to say. I guess they're saying his positive energy because the name Grim is the opposite of that.
Grimsby literally means Grimm's village.
We're all familiar with these common settlement suffixes, but what's so striking is how clearly this map of Viking place names reflects the extent of the Viking invasions. You can practically see the exact location of the Danelaw dividing Viking and Anglo-Saxon England without needing to draw it on with thick red pen.
Wow, yeah.
Following all these invasions, Britain was littered with place names that originated in different languages and accents. But the final thing that would make its place names truly unpronounceable was time.
Over hundreds of years, locals who were too busy to pronounce all the syllables in Cester reduced it to stir to save time. But they couldn't read or write, so the spelling stayed the same.
And while the English language has continued to gradually evolve, our place names haven't, resulting in a language landscape littered with phonetic booby traps.
But what about Froome? Which linguistic group is responsible for Britain's so-called
question.
hardest place name?
Unusually for a place name in England, Froome is from a surviving Celtic word, frama, which means fair, fine or brisk, probably describing the flow of its lovely river.
It's not really surprising that the oldest language in these islands...
Look at that
Probably
river.
describing the flow of its lovely river.
Nice.
It's not really surprising that the oldest language in these islands is the one that's drifted the furthest from pronounceability.
So don't forget to join us for the next episode of Map Men.
Is that the end of your sentence?
Yeah, I'm done.
I did always wonder why some of those English names were so crazy to pronounce. Something I noticed that they said towards the end there was that the reason they didn't change the spelling of the names is because they couldn't read or write. So they didn't know how to change the spelling. They just pronounced it differently. That's a piece of the puzzle I never really thought about. Another excellent Map Men video. Thank you, Map Men. You're wonderful. I love your videos. Thank you guys for recommending. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Later.